A game that's really interested me and I've been staying on top on is Assassin's Creed Valhalla. And of course, yesterday there was gameplay shown of it for the first time at the Ubisoft event, and I gotta say, it was somewhat disappointing. However, with that being said, it also had some really great elements to it, and the disappointment that I saw in the gameplay is mostly due to the lack of polish and where it is in development, and not necessarily because there's gameplay elements I disagree with. Straight away, the first thing I notice is that this game is really clearly lacking polish, especially for where it is in development, and for a gameplay demo, I really would have expected something a lot more polished and a little bit more refined, even if it's a vertical slice. And I'm kind of worried that I may have to play an unfinished game in November, because Ubisoft like to do this weird 2-year release thing with Assassin's Creed at the moment. And I'm really worried for how this game looks in terms of its polish, where it is for that gameplay demo, and just in general how it all flowed and looked really kind of janky. That being said, I know that a lot of last minute polish is usually done on these games, and there's a bit of crunch done to make sure that this game will probably be looking a little better and a little bit more refined. With that being said, when I saw that early gameplay of Odyssey last year, it looked like a PS2 game, and whilst it didn't look like a PS2 game on release, it really just felt janky and slow, and the animations didn't flow together, and I felt that game was unfinished on release, and I'm worried we may see the same thing here with Valhalla. So I'm interested to see how that'll play out, but that being said, I think that this team at Montreal is a little bit better than the one at Quebec, and will probably put in a little bit more polish and a little bit more effort on their final product during release. And I know that there's of course going to be straight away a bunch of patch updates as soon as the game is out, but I'm still worried about where the game will be on release. And like I said, the animations looked really janky, and that is my biggest concern, is just how poorly those animations were done, how well they just didn't flow together, and how the world looked in general just wasn't great for a next generation game. It was great in detail. I think it looks a lot more diverse and a lot more interesting than the one we got in Odyssey, but for a next generation game, the graphics aren't amazingly stunning or anything beautiful. Now, this isn't necessarily directed at the development team, but the marketing team, and it's their focus on the epic Viking saga and not the Assassin's Creed elements that they should maybe be giving a little bit more focus on. I know this game is clearly embracing a lot of Viking elements, and I'm cool with that. That's really interesting, and of course with God of War, the Vikings are a lot more interesting at the moment to a lot more people because of that game. And I get they want to push that, but at the same time, this is an Assassin's Creed game, and I'd love to see them push that more. And with people like Darby McDevitt behind the project, who's reintroducing things like Confessions and The Hidden Ones and The Hood, and bringing in more of those Assassin's Creed moments from the original games that I love to see. But the marketing team really doesn't seem to want to show them for some reason, and I don't know why. And it's really showing to a lot of people as well for the first time, and I'm surprised we didn't see this with Odyssey, the fact that this isn't being marketed as an Assassin's Creed game or shown as an Assassin's Creed game. And I'm glad to see people, speaking up about it who didn't say anything with Odyssey, which was an Assassin's Creed game. It had no assassins or hidden ones. And I think there's an issue with that. And it seems to be that the marketing team, with the success of Odyssey, is pushing more and more like, hey, this is a Vikings game. Epic Vikings. So play like a Viking, all that stuff. I just don't like it. I think they really should be embracing just a little bit more of that Assassin's Creed side, because people still really like Assassin's Creed. And Odyssey was successful because it had Assassin's Creed in the title, let's be honest. And I'm really interested to see how maybe the marketing might change with the recent reception that this gameplay trailer got, and the demo and everything else got, because it was marketed as a Vikings game. Now, some other little small things I didn't quite like was the facial animations. Again, they're probably going to be touched up later on, and that was specifically with the female Ivor. I don't really know what was going on there. Her facial animations were a little off, and I don't think her line delivery was amazing in my opinion. That's just my personal opinion. Some people might think her line delivery was amazing. So that's cool, that's fine. I generally like the male Ivor voice actor. I think he's pretty good. I like his voice acting a little bit more better. He's obviously just a little bit more talented. That's my opinion, so that's okay. But overall, those are just really my biggest issues with the gameplay. Really, everything else looked fine. I think obviously there's a little bit of issues with, they're kind of forcing, like, these are the big battles, you got to do this and follow these big battles and raids, which go for it. I don't really care. I mean, they can do that. And I'm interested to see how they play out, because I think they look very cinematic, and if each one is cinematic and a little bit more unique and diverse, and it isn't all cookie cutter and looks the same, they'll be really fun to play. But I am a little worried that they could be very similar and cookie cutter and all kind of play the same animations and look similar and not be unique and cinematic. But look, other than these issues with polish and maybe some cookie cutter gameplay that we'll probably get because it's a Ubisoft game, those are kind of how their games are, and they do get a little repetitive, but you know, you can't always have an amazing, unique game for everything, especially when you're making massive open world games like they are at the moment. So that's fine in some ways. But the other things I saw actually looked good, like really good and really interesting to me. It's just that the polish is really worrying me and how unfinished the game is looking at the moment. And I'm really open to them delaying it a little longer, but we'll wait and see how that turns out. But the things I really wanted to focus on were a lot of positives that I saw. And I'm really, really happy to see that social stealth is back after it's been missing from the last few games. Not only that though, the social stealth actually looks amazing. They seem to be following the blending with actual crowds that you look alike with, rather than just a random bunch of citizens, which I really love, and it's really going back to its roots of AC1 with that, which is amazing to me. The animations looked actually really cool on the social stealth as well, in the general blending in the crowds was really cool, and how that worked, that looked amazing to me. Return of Eagle Vision is a big one that I love to see. It's not a full-blown return of Eagle Vision, but it's a little bit more like a cross between the Animus Pulse and Eagle Vision, rather than fully embracing the bird mechanic like they've introduced since Far Cry Primal. Along with this, they're not embracing the massive RPG elements that they had in Odyssey, and instead of taking a little bit of a step back and going for that cross between Origins and Odyssey, which I think is a good middle ground for their weird light RPGs Ubisoft are doing, but that's fine. But they're introducing more unique weapons rather than having a bunch of the same weapons that are just different levels, and I'm assuming that'll be the same with armor pieces and things like that. So that's great to see, and it's going to work a little bit more kind of like the God of War RPG mechanics that were in that game. So I'm really happy to see that being implemented into this game. I think would work a lot better in Assassin's Creed games as well, rather than how it worked in Odyssey. On top of this, it looks a little bit more grounded, which I'm so happy to see, because Assassin's Creed has always meant to kind of been a retelling of history. I know it's a sci-fi retelling of history, but the fantasy elements that were implemented into Odyssey for the first time were just fucking strange, and I don't know why they were put into that game. And it was very obvious that Quebec wanted to make a more RPG-focused game, and the team at Montreal want to make a more Assassin's Creed-focused game with RPG elements. So I'm very happy to see that, and taking a step away from those mysterious fantasy elements that were in Odyssey. Now, as I said before, the graphics don't look amazing, but I will say the world looks far better. On top of that, the level design looks a lot better as well. The world looks a lot more diverse and a little bit more memorable, I should say, because the world from Odyssey I felt looked very similar and nothing looked really apart. It was very bland in how it looked and wasn't extremely diverse. It didn't look amazing, but it definitely looked good, and the world was a little just not diverse enough for my taste personally. Whereas with this game, the world seems to go from the snow through to the swampy forests of England, all the way up to the more hilly, mountainous regions of England as well. And it seems to be a lot more diverse, and it looks like it could be a little bit more memorable than what Odyssey's was. The longboat was something that I touched on in an earlier video of mine, and something I talked about, and I'm really happy to see how it works in this game, and it's a really good cross between the naval and the naval exploration we've gotten in other games, because there's no full-blown battles, which I'm really happy to see, because at this point we've had them in every Assassin's Creed game since AC3 almost, and they're just kind of getting bland and boring, and I'm happy to see them go away this time. And instead, we still have a crew, and they have their songs and their stories, but it's used purely for traversal and raids, not combat, which I'm really happy to see. And I'd rather have that than something like we've gotten in Odyssey or Black Flag, because whilst those were great, I don't think they should be in the newer titles because they're getting a little bland. Now, getting onto some of the more story and character-driven aspects of the game, especially with Ivor. Now, there was a little bit of a side quest in the demo that showed the cat and how the cat becomes a part of the crew, and it was just one of those little fun side quests that was put into the game to show the more human side of Ivor. And that's something I really love to see, because I love to see the characters get kind of branched out, and we see aspects of them that we don't necessarily see throughout the whole game, and these little moments we see they're just nice to see, and they really humanize Ivor and show just that more happier and more community-driven side of them, and shows them as a leader of their community and how that Ivor is clearly going to bring that community all the way from Norway over to England, and how they create that new settlement for their clan. So that's really interesting to see, and it's going to be great to see more quests like that, which show a more human side of Ivor as well. On top of that, there was actually a hidden one in the gameplay trailer, I believe, and it was really great to see, and they were clearly dressed as a more Masyaf-like assassin, which was really nice to see, because obviously they're getting to that point in history where the assassins were going to be becoming the Leviathan Brotherhood and be a part of that world, and I don't really know where they are at the moment in that game and at that time, so that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But it was just nice to see an assassin in the game, and it's good to know that we will probably be playing as an assassin again rather than a Viking warrior throughout the whole game, so that'll be great to see. And in a lot of ways, as I've heard, Ivor is going to mirror Edward in character traits and being a Viking, but also being an assassin at the same time and doing their own thing. So I'll be really interested to see how all of that's going to play out with the hidden ones, but I just want to compliment them on actually showing a hidden one in the footage, because, like I said, they've really just been pushing the epic Viking saga, play like a Viking, all that shit. So that was really nice to see. Look, overall, I'm very concerned on how janky and unpolished this game looks. The parkour looks like it needs work, the combat animations are pretty poor, the flow of the game is just bad in certain areas. However, whilst the marketing is really pushing Vikings and raids, it seems the game will focus on AC elements a lot more, with things like hidden blades returning, confessions, stealth actually being an option for gameplay. This is a game I will be able to kind of see how it fully plays out on release, and it's something I want to see more of when it's more polished and less janky and a little bit more near the finished side of things, rather than where it's at the point of like, we're on crunch, we have to get this game finished and polished for release. So that'll be really interesting to see. Overall, I'm just extremely excited to see where this game will end up, because I feel like it could be a great Assassin's Creed game or another epic RPG game that was Odyssey. So yeah, and I didn't like Odyssey, so let's wait and see. Anyway, I have been Seth from Silver Soul Gaming. I will see you guys later this week for another video. Hopefully all our links in the description. Check us out, do whatever you want with that. Of course, follow us on Twitter, follow me on Twitter, like and subscribe to the video, check out the music, all of that shit, and I will see you guys later this week maybe, or next week for another video.